All right, all right, all right. You're listening to the We're Talking Football podcast. I'm Weston. With me, as always, my right-hand man, Lou. All right, Lou. One of those evenings I see.
Oh,
Let me
man.
let me return the favor. That's how we're rolling
It's gonna
as
be a rough
well.
episode.
It sure is. Quite a bit to unpack this week as both of our teams came off rather lackluster performances, and candidly, not too many strong performances across the league. So we'll unpack as we go, and we'll look forward to next week. But before we get right into festivities, to use your words, I don't want to waste all of our energy on the foreplay here. But let's remind our listeners that tonight's episode is brought to you by Primetime Sports Talk, your top source for all major sports content, including DFS, fantasy advice, and great betting tips. Be sure to head to primetimesportstalk.com to check out their in-depth analysis, exclusive content, fascinating interviews, and explore the rest of their amazing podcast family. Again, primetimesportstalk.com, your go-to for sports content. Now, Lou, while we always love plugging our friends over at Primetime Sports Talk, I think it's an opportune time for us to go ahead and repeat last week and plug ourselves prior to diving into this evening's content. So, as I always do, I'll rely on you to let everybody know where they can find us.
Find us on Instagram and Twitter at WTF Pod NFL. And Weston, tell them what they got to do for YouTube, bro.
Look us up on YouTube. We're Talking Football, nice and simple. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. You will get sick and tired of hearing me say this, but I did promise Lou if we got to a certain threshold, y'all know the number by now, the millions and millions of listeners. We get to those millions and millions of subscribers. Lou's getting a nice dinner on this guy. So,
all right, that was our episode for tonight, everyone. So I hope you enjoyed.
Yep, that's all we have to cover today. That was week 3 in the 2022 NFL season.
Yeah, Weston and I were talking before we hopped on that, this episode's gonna fucking suck to recap, especially from both of from a hometown standpoint here. So we're not looking forward to this. I know I'm not, but I'm pretty sure you're equally as bummed as I am from last week.
It's without question. The reality is like there's just going to be a lot of negativity during this discussion,
and I'm such a positive guy, Weston. So it's gonna. This is hard for me.
I know. It's like I'm so glad I get to see this opposite side of you. The reality of all of it is deserving, right? It's all deserving. So again, let's not waste the time. Let's get right into it. Beginning as we always do with our hometown takes. You let me kick off last week, Lou, so I'll return the favor this week. Your Chargers hosted the Jacksonville Jaguars. Without giving too much away, I'm sure people know the outcome of it. I'll make one statement before I chime in. I was dreadfully wrong about the outcome of this game.
I told you it was going to be
your turn.
I was wrong too. I said it was going to be closer than you thought, and I was 100% wrong. So normally when we do a hometown takes, we first start with the good and then bad. So let's start with the good. All right.
Yep.
Did everyone hear that? Because there is no good. That's me preparing for pretty much 20 minutes of living through this shitstorm from this past week. So there was no good from this weekend. This past weekend with the Chargers versus the Jaguars. I couldn't literally find an ounce. Hold on. That's good. I couldn't literally find
an ounce. You're finding 16 ounces right now.
I couldn't find anything to hang, for the Chargers to hang their hat on. And so I think we skipped the good with the Chargers. And come on, y'all, let's take a ride. Don't you say shit. Let's just get inside. It's time to take your ass on another kind of trip. Rest in peace, Julio, by the way.
Coolio, baby.
Yeah,
fantastic voyage.
He died. He died today.
Today?
Probably a couple hours ago. That's why I gave a little homage to Coolio. Just now he returned to that gangster's paradise. Breaking news, all.
Admittingly, most of my attention from a news perspective today has been drawn to Hurricane Ian coming up through Florida. So for any Florida listeners, and we know people down there, be safe. We wish you and the family the best, but that's where most of my attention's been. I am ashamed to admit that I did not hear that Coolio passed away today. R.I.P. Gangsta's Paradise.
And you should be ashamed, by the way. So I digress. Let's get into the bad. And the bad simply was everything. All right, let's start with the low-hanging fruit injuries. Rashawn Slater out for the year, the torn bicep, gone. Guyton, their only speed wide receiver in that wide receiver core, torn ACL, gone. Bosa, significant groin injury. In my opinion, I did go to the University of Google and I looked this up, so he should be about out for 4 to 6 weeks from the injury that he sustained this past weekend. Gone. Herbert still hurt with those ribs. Corey Lindsley, their all-pro center, probably a top 3 center in the league. He has a knee issue, and it's not one of those acute knee issues either. This is a knee issue he's going to have to battle all year, so he's going to be in and out of the lineup throughout the rest of the season, and that's going to be extremely frustrating, especially for a team that praises continuity amongst the offensive line. He's gone, or he's coming back this weekend, but you had Allen. He's still hurt on the men. He might come back. J.C. Jackson, once again, still recovering from that surgery. So those names I just mentioned, Weston, they're not like your second or third string, line of defense here. These are all pro caliber players. To lose that amount of talent will, of course, have a significant impact for them this past weekend, and to be honest with you, for the rest of the season. So injuries, charges, like always, as last year I think was the outlier, but as always, Chargers decimated by injuries. Now let's look into the coaching and game plan. They had 10 days to prepare for the Jacksonville Jaguars after their game against the Kansas City Chiefs, and pretty much this is, I'm not gonna say the effort. I don't think it was an effort issue, but this is the game plan they had came out with within the last 10 days of preparation. Extremely frustrating. And now as a fan and also as a casual observer, I'm starting to think, I don't know. I'm having doubts from a coaching standpoint. You get the offense was going to be an issue, right? It was going to be sluggish. Herbert was going to try to battle through it. I just knew that I thought like this was going to be a low-scoring game, defensive battle, because of all the issues they have amongst the offense, right? They were without their starting center. They were out Keenan Allen. And then Herbert, you just tell there's a lot of passes that he was throwing that were not accurate because he was affected by that rib injury. All that being said, the Los Angeles Chargers had 12 design rushing plays. 12 design rushing plays. And they made Justin Herbert, who has a cartilage, whatever the fuck you want to call it, injury from his ribs, throw 45 times. They made him step back and pass 80% of their plays. The highest, by the way, in the league last week. This is how they protect their star quarterback. To add insult to injury, they didn't pull him in the fourth quarter when the Jaguars were up by 4 touchdowns and there was 5-6 minutes left. I am completely befuddled, dumbfounded, whatever word you want to put there right now, as a fan, that they would put this guy in harm's way. Especially after Rashawn Slater got hurt. Now you have Stormin Norton over there trying to do his best job to, I don't know. I don't know what effort you would call him. He does not deserve to be on an NFL field. And he was the one that was in charge of protecting Justin Herbert's blind side, an injured Justin Herbert. Totally dumbfounded. All right, so that's the offensive side standpoint. What about the defensive side? You would think that they would put a decent effort because they're still loaded on the defensive side. I didn't see that either. I felt like the Jaguars picked apart the Los Angeles Chargers defense. Very concerning because it was a week before last, I praised them, how they were playing so decisive, efficient defensive football. They were, getting all, it was just night and day from a skill standpoint. You're going from Kansas City Chiefs to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and what happened? In my opinion, I think I'm a little concerned. Now I'm starting to think, I don't know if Staley is the guy for the Los Angeles Chargers. I never questioned him last year. Even in the Raiders game we battled, I 100% thought you were wrong. But the doubt is starting to creep in. Here's this guy that's trying to change the narrative that we're not the same old Chargers, and he does such a great job of talking. But is that all this is? Why did his defense not show up? Why was he unable? I'm not saying I'm pissed that they lost the game. But I'm pissed that the Jaguars put up that many points and just did whatever they want against this talented defense. What, Staley? Now you're going to talk about Bosa being hurt. What, Staley can't coach it? He can't coach a good defensive plan without having superstars on his team?
No.
Is that what this is coming to? I don't want to really talk about injuries, especially on the defensive side, because you see what the Ravens did last year with all the injuries they had, right? Guess what? They were one game from making the playoffs, man. One game, all right? So I know injuries do impact, but it comes to the point, especially I'm talking about on the defensive side, that they should have been able to not let the Jaguars put up that many points at home.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that it's not necessarily the loss. It's just the manner in which you lost, right? And for me, it's that every team is allowed a one or two just inexplicable performances in a football calendar. It happens, man, right? Like game plans go awry, things happen. Like every team falls victim to it. Most teams fall victim to it at least once in the schedule, but this one was just perplexing in so many ways. I think
numerous ways from a personnel standpoint, from a schematic standpoint. It wasn't just like, they were not performing on the field, but like, what are you doing keeping some of your players out there? Like, what are you trying to prove?
The biggest one to me that makes me, and welcome to my land of questioning your coach, right? And maybe this is knee-jerk reaction, some of this for you, right? Like, because you were on the Staley train. We all were on the Staley train last year and how he changed the guard, right? And, just a week ago, we're saying, hey, this is where you wanted to be at 1-1. I think what hurts most about this loss is, and you don't like to talk about injuries, it's just the people who got injured, right? And how that changes things. And then where I'm still floored is, as you mentioned, right? 12 designed runs, 25 total rushing yards. Even when the game's out of hand, and I know game flow dictated a lot of like trying to pass and trying to remain competitive and doing those things, like, all right, if you're going to keep Herbert out there, got it. Get it. Well, don't get it, but I got it. The mere fact, like, let's just get to the end of this football game and turn around and hand the ball off. Let's try to walk out of here with some semblance of confidence or that something went right, but 25 rushing yards and 45 passing attempts. And we both talked about how this is going to be pain management for Herbert, right? Like this isn't going to heal even with sitting him for the week. And it was evident early. It was on his mind. He was thinking about it. He took a couple of hits where you just saw him wince on the ground, like the one fumble. Like he was just like, he was in pain. But then there was a point in the time in the game where like, I think adrenaline took over and things took over and he wasn't as focused on it. But by the time that happened, it was just too little too late. Right. Like it was just too much to change. And for me, the biggest concern aside from the injuries is just the lack of running game through 3 weeks. Like you talked about it. I saw it. I've seen you talk about it on social media today, other days, that Eckler just doesn't look explosive. And is it, I think you mentioned something earlier today. I don't mean to steal your words, but like, is less more with Eckler, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like spread the touches out. So when he does get him, he's more explosive. He's more productive. He's more of all of the above versus like, I mean, the guy's not a 30 carry back. Not that they're handing it to anybody for 30 carries at this point in time, where the offense is going. But to me, like, again, outside of injuries to the prominent players that you mentioned, the glaring concern for me is the attempt or lack thereof to run the football in the NFL. Like, has to be a threat, especially now, dude. Like, you know how you buy
protect your quarterback
100%, and not just this week. For the next few weeks, you have to minimize his hits. Right?
See, this is my thing, right? Don't mean to cut you off. I'm going
no, you're
to. Fine. This is my thing. Staley once again has preached, throughout the offseason. We don't want to be a talented team. We want to be a dominant team, yada, yada, yada. We want to be a physical team, preaches physicality, all that stuff. That's great. But once again, that's just his lip service now, because That's just him talking. If you look at this game plan, they were not a physical team this past weekend. They did not run the ball or attempt to run the ball this past weekend. They did not control the line of scrimmage on the defensive side. So all this talk, all right, this comes to a point where you got to shut your mouth and just put a plan in place. All right. And that's what you're talking about. All these things, it all comes down to one thing. Obviously, the injuries is paramount. That's the biggest concern, right? Because then you have to hear the next man up type shit, which is very frustrating. But my second biggest concern is his coaching. All right. I think there's a lack of creativity. So you were talking about Eckler. Yeah, I do think he doesn't have that burst or is missing that burst. In addition, I don't think he's making people miss. I don't have any stats to this. I don't think he's making people miss as much as he was, from the years prior. But I also think it's a coaching standpoint. They're not putting him in a good position to succeed. Their offensive line, we're not creating holes for him to run through. Eckler had like 80 rushing yards, and 77 of those 80 rushing yards came after contact, meaning like this guy's getting hit before, he's even getting to the line of scrimmage, which is extremely frustrating. But they're not putting him out on space either, all right? So that's a huge problem. Once again, comes down to coaching, right? Also, if you really look at, how the games have been, the first three games have really went, there's a lack of consistency from the Chargers from playing 4 quarters. All right, the Chargers have been outscored 58-24 in the second half. This tells me the coaching staff is incapable of putting a full, competent game out, and that's concerning. All right, fine. You might be able to beat some of those other teams that have worse coaching. I'm looking at you. What's his name? Josh McDaniel. All right, but when you're going up against those teams that are going to be in the playoff, Kansas City and Andy Reid. I'm not saying the Jaguars are going to the playoffs, but once again, an experienced, successful coach in Peterson, these are issues. And the fact that Staley and the Chargers look completely lost when they play these top echelon of head coaches is a serious problem, I think. So now I'm having doubt that creeps to the back of my head. I will go ahead. I'll let you react, and I'll say one thing.
No, I agree. And I agree, especially with the notion around the defensive side of the ball. Like, yes, I know all world Joey Bosa went out, but you mean to tell me, like, what is this Jacksonville team known for? And it's probably their defense, right? They have better players on the defensive side of the ball. To walk out of this game at home, nonetheless, with 0 sacks against inexperienced quarterback play, not necessarily an all-world offensive line. You talk about, again, controlling the line of scrimmage and being physical. I mean, Jacksonville ran the ball at will. It's just I'll excuse the game, right? Like, I'll excuse the outcome of the game. It's just the manner in which that outcome was achieved is not what I expect, and I'm sure what most Bolt fans expect from their team. Like, you can live with a loss, but this was a mollywop, dude. Like, it was, I don't know how else to put it, right?
It wasn't just that it wasn't just that the players got outplayed, but
coaches got outcoached.
Every facet of the game.
Yep.
They just were outsmarted. And that's disheartening. That's why you bring in some of those veteran leaders like Kyle Van Noy and Khalil Mack. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the whole purpose of bringing, because they have experience. They're intelligent. They can help. They're supposed to help stop the bleeding from a knowledge standpoint, at least. And it just, the coaching failed them. And like I said, I'm not saying at all. I'm not alluding to the fact that the Chargers. I do not think it was an effort thing whatsoever. I just think it was just a lack of competent game plan. And they had 10 days. They had 10 days at home. 10 days at home to come up with. This is what they came up with.
That's the other flap.
You had 10 days. Like, oh shit, Herbert. He has a pretty serious injury, rib injury. How can we protect him? All right, let's try to run the ball. All right, let's try to use Eckler more. All right, so this is my concern. Keenan Allen hasn't been out there the last 2 games. Where's the utilization of Eckler? Where's the creativity of trying to pick up Keenan Allen's slack, especially in the intermediary, parts of the field, right? Where is that? Where is he ISO him on a linebacker that can't cover him? Like, where is that? Like, Why is this so hard? And you alluded to before, I'm not sure if this was offline last week or during our last show, that like, fans, we do have that sense of entitlement. Oh, that we think we're smarter than coaches and what have you. I tell you right now, what I'm saying is like common sense. And there's an aspect where I'm not saying I'm smarter than the coaches, but come on, man, this is common sense. All right, Allen's going to be out, so let's use Eckler more in the passing game, and guess what? We can have a rotation of 3 running backs to use them for a rushing attack. This isn't rocket science, all right? Now it's up to them to create the schemes and the plans and the plays, but that should have been, you had 10 days to make something look unique, and it looked like the same old stick play. Run to the sticks, turn around, catch.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the utilization of Eckler in the slot, arrow routes and out routes, from the backfield.
Routes, yes.
Yeah. Chip and peel off some screens, like anything to get that man the ball in space. And I can't help but agree. Just a lack of creativity is kind of what I took from, at least, or a lack of imagination on the offensive side of the ball with, like, listen, if this was a Thursday night game after a Sunday game, okay, I get it. But like you said, 10 days
at home.
What are you looking? Who's next on their schedule?
Texans.
So you're not looking for, you know what I mean? Like, you're not looking at like, oh, we got Buffalo coming to town right after this. Let's
or the Broncos, like a division rival.
Yeah. Like, I feel like we could cheat the system a little bit and spend half of this time preparing for that opponent and looking a game ahead, right? Like, this wasn't a trap game, essentially, in my opinion. Like if you think about who your next opponent is.
And it's those halftime adjustments that really grinds my gears. And because at halftime, I think it was 16-10, bro. 16-10.
Yeah.
So
got out of control at the second half.
Yeah. And
right.
The only thing I will say, this came out today. I had another bullet point here to talk about, that how this coaching staff was going to throw out Storm Norton as their left tackle because they don't want to jumble their O-line. That's their whole mentality. We want continuity. Regardless of, they don't care about results. They just want continuity. But finally, it came out today. They came to their senses. They are not starting Storm Norton, and they're throwing out the 6th-round rookie, Jamari Salyer, out of Georgia, as a left tackle.
Let's go. This will pay dividends for them in the long run. Get that guy some experience. We talked about it. I mean, this guy is a heck of a player,
I don't know how he can be really much. Listen, here's the problem. Going from Slater to Salyer, that's rough, right? However, I'm going to try to be a glass half full type of guy right now. Going from Storm Norton to Salyer, that's fucking awesome.
You know what I mean?
Do you see? It's kind of like that Alonzo Mourning gif. If you ever just go on your phone, just type in Alonzo Mourning. He's like contemplating. He's sad or whatever, but then he thinks something's like, oh, okay, it's not terrible.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I thought. I'm like, all right, but it's still not Slater. But thank God it's not Storm, man. So
okay,
that's my 2 cents. I'm sticking to it, and I don't know if I really expect them to win this next weekend, but just be competitive, bro.
Come up with something different. Have some imagination.
Yeah.
Like empty your toolbox and get your team back to 500 is the way that
We do have a bunch of guys. This is also my freaking out too, by the way, because if you are a Chargers fan, you should be freaking out because perhaps outside Justin Herbert, your most important offensive player is out for the year, and Slater. That's bad, right? So that's bad. And then outside of Derwin James, you're probably your second best defensive players out for a long period of time. Thank God he's not out for the year. He already had surgery in Joey Bosa, but I think he'll come back for that Niners game.
Yeah, that'll be perfect timing. See his brother and have his groin fully recharged and ready to go. Yeah. I think the good news there is he had the surgery out of the way and he didn't say, hey, let me see how this thing heals for over the next 2 to 3 weeks and then have to opt for surgery and prolong it even more.
sometimes when you hear about players not getting surgeries, you do have to, like I said, I went to the University of Google, and you have to wait for things to like the swelling to go. Like you can't do surgery right away. There's certain circumstances that you have to wait a little bit. But this looks like
I watch shows like ER in Chicago, man. I know how this goes. They gotta wait for certain results to come back before they can just use the knife.
When I was dating my wife at the time, I watched 3 seasons of Grey's Anatomy. I'm McDreamy, McSteamy. I'm telling you right now, I'm not too proud to, I'm not to deny that.
You didn't have to go to Google to that. You could just go to Meredith Grey and figure it out.
All right, let's go up a little north and let's talk about how great your weekend was with watching the San Francisco 49ers.
Let's keep the negativity train rolling full steam ahead, shall we?
I want to say something as we do make this transition. So I watched the first half of the Niners game, right? And then I had to put my daughter, to bed. And by the time, if anyone knows me, takes my daughter, it's like a cage match trying to get her down for bed. And by the time I got out, I looked on Twitter and I saw all the negative things that like this game should not be on prime time. This is a sleeper. Like what the hell? So I'm like, oh, looks like I'm not missing anything. So I decided I only saw the first half, and so I only can comment on the first half. But this is where I'm going to let you and your expertise take over here.
Well, if you watched only the first half, like you shouldn't be all that negative. It was a different type of game.
I know.
My opening comment here is: did everybody enjoy NBC's version of Sunday Night Baseball? That's my opening comment here. As we do the good, the bad. Actually, there is some good, right? And I think the good is our defense. Looks really good, actually. Potentially,
that's a long-term problem though for you guys.
It's a very long-term problem.
Do you know why?
We'll unpack that during the week or during the season, I'm sure, throughout.
Well, this is probably D'Amico Ryans' last year coaching you guys up.
No, if you follow the 49ers close enough, he'll be our head coach next year. That's what people say.
Okay.
This defense is potentially better than the 2019 defense, in my opinion. Listen, in this game, I mean, they sacked Russell Wilson 4 times. They had 9 QB hits, and they broke up 5 passes, right? So they were moving to the ball. They were moving around. They were getting pressure, minus Armstead, by the way, right? So line, one integral piece of the cog missing. Lou, this defense in 3 games has given up 28 points. Now, there's been 37 points scored against us in 3 games. So that's a little bit more than 12 a game, but one of them was a special teams block field goal for a touchdown. I don't hold the defense accountable for that. The other was a safety that happened in this game. I certainly don't hold the defense accountable for that. So 28 points, you're talking about roughly 9 points per game. I know it's not against the stiffest of competition if you look at the schedule for the first 3 weeks, but if you ask any coach, any GM, any player, that if your defense gave up single-digit points every single week, usually that results in wins. Mm-hmm. The defense is playing winning football. The rest of the team, not so much. They held Russell Wilson to 184 yards and 0 touchdowns and a QBR of 32.9 for the entire game. So
they let him cook.
They let him cook, and you've all seen the memes out there where they have like hot dogs and cereal, and they're like, Russ is cooking.
I just can't stand those only because they make me want to puke.
Throw up, dude. I can't even imagine that combination. I like both of those things independently of one another, but not necessarily as a combination. But that's it. That's the good. The defensive side of the ball. Now let's again continue this negativity train.
Come on down, baby. Choo choo.
11-10. Apparently, that's only happened once before in the NFL with a final score of 11-10. I mean, this game was 7-5 at one point, dude. Like, ridiculous.
And it's so crazy because, like, that scoring drive that you guys had, I'm like, all right, this is like, it's like, how can you go from that scoring drive that was so impressive to nothing?
Nothing.
Like throughout, like literally nothing throughout the whole game.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about where that nothing comes from, because I have
a theory, but go ahead.
I have a theory as well. You mentioned injuries. I'll mention injuries for the second week in a row. The maybe not so obvious to outside of the 49er fan base is starting linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair leaves the game. The big one that we all know about, arguably the best player in football, Trent Williams with the high ankle sprain. Now, this also happened on the safety play, which I never thought I would be so happy to actually see a safety, considering that it should have been a pick six, right? I might be the second happiest man in the world outside of.
By the way, that once again, it's a perfect utilization of the Alonzo Mourning gif.
Yeah, like okay. Outside of Dan Orlovsky, I'm the second most happy man in the entire world that happened. Now, if you don't know the whole backstory to Dan Orlovsky, just go Google Dan Orlovsky and you'll see how this man ran an entire the entire width of the end zone out of bounds, still trying to continue the play for a safety. And I think his Twitter response was hilarious about how he feels vindicated.
Mark Sanchez should be pretty happy about this too. It was on that type of level.
Oh, dude, so bad. So bad. So, but the Trent Williams one hurts. Thankfully, it's to the tune of a month with a high ankle sprain. I mean, they brought the card out, they brought everything, and you're like, there it goes. Like, it's not often when you lose a single play and you're like, that changes the entire guard of the season. But people like Trent Williams, people like a Rashawn Slater, that changes a lot of things when that player goes out. Arguably the best player on your football team, arguably one of the best players in the NFL, missing relatively significant time, and you never know how these things healed up. Good news is he didn't have to have surgery. Now, I mentioned earlier how the 49ers defense held Russell Wilson to a QBR of 32.9, only to be outdone by Jimmy G's abysmal 14.2 QBR for the game. So let's stay here for a minute. Lou, I want to know, where's the crowd right now saying that this team is better off with Jimmy as their quarterback? Where are those people right now? I can't
understand why people. I see that. I see that like some people on Twitter are calling out this crowd. I have yet to see an intelligent person actually make an argument clamoring for Jimmy G.
But you've seen plenty of people make the argument. You're just saying that you don't find them to be intelligent or credible. But I can tell you the people that are making that argument have massive followings, do this for a living, and have personally gotten out of their way to say that this team is better.
And they also thought the last election was also rigged too. So yeah, same people.
Yeah, but
like being like they're just making shit up, bro, for like clicks. And I'm sorry. I mean, there's no way someone can actually think that the Niners are better with Jimmy G.
We beg for followers, and these individuals have millions of them, right?
Like stupid loves stupid.
Oh my God. I mean, dude, watching this game, I just saw. Now, listen, before I even say this, I'm the first to admit and first to call out that I still would rather this be Jimmy as the backup quarterback than throwing in rookie Brock Purdy or throwing in Nate Sudfeld I do think it gives them the chance. But what I did see is zero evidence that this team is better off with Jimmy versus Trey Lance. And again, I'm not knocking him. Well, I kind of am. But I know that Jimmy will have some decent games the rest of the season. And he'll do enough from time to time to help them win. But people are like, oh, he didn't have the playbook. He didn't have the preseason. He didn't have. I know, dude, but they say this, bro. They say this.
Stop. When people say he doesn't have the playbook, he's been on this team for how long? He's been
since 2017.
He's been playing with this particular core group of offensive skill positions for how long? 3 years?
Yeah.
4 years? Come on, man. Come on. It wasn't him that self-proclaimed it's like riding a bike.
Last week. Last week.
I guess when he went down the street, he fucking fell off on his face because he's like, oh, it's a little harder than I thought.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. No, I'm sorry. Fake news.
Dude, you're right. But like, this is the vindication or the justification that he's been given in the past that he's been given. Bro, if Trey Lance stepped out of the back of the end zone, the media would have crucified him. And the reality is Jimmy does it. And people are like, oh, he doesn't have the playbook. He didn't get any preseason snaps and blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm sorry. Does not having any preseason snaps just all of a sudden make the end zone shorter than it's been since the entire time you've been playing football in your entire life? Like it's mind numbing to me that I have to continue to listen to this. But again, I will stand and die on this hill that I would still rather have Jimmy as the backup than probably what the other options would have been having us be in this scenario. But what makes this even worse is the continued screaming of the fire Shanahan, right? It started last week when Trey gets injured, and it continues this week that like somehow, some way, Kyle Shanahan is expected to not only draw up the plays, but to execute them as well. Right? Like to go out there and make the throws. Like, why are we even talking about this?
I actually have something to add. I think semi-intelligent. Like I said, semi-intelligent because I'm halfway through my drink. All right. Well, I'm assuming that these pro Jimmy G supporters and sympathizers are alluding to the fact that Jimmy G was witness saying that Kyle Shanahan, like, worst play ever or whatever, your plays suck type shit, whatever
that was. There's no context around it. It was just a perfect snapshot of lip reading, and we have no idea what it's even in reference to.
That being said, also Joe Staley was on, I don't know whose podcast it was, I'm not sure if it was today or a couple days ago or what have you, and basically they asked Joe Staley how significant of a loss was Mike McDaniel going to the Miami Dolphins, and he said it was a really significant loss, and for the reason being is Mike McDaniel was kind of like the orchestrator of the rushing attack, and in addition, he was like a mad genius in creating certain plays and schemes and stuff like that with Kyle Shanahan. So he felt like, and this is coming from the horse's mouth, so this is not like Stephen A. Smith or any of those other talking heads that I also was referred to, by the way.
Just this week.
But this is coming from Joe Staley, a guy that you would think he probably knows about the 49ers pretty well, right? So what's your opinion on that? Do you think how much does that merit losing McDaniel, that maybe he was a significant contributor to Shanahan's success?
So I think it would be foolish to draw a straight line saying lack of success is because Mike McDaniel has moved on. Kyle's been in this league a long time and has had plenty of success in other stops that were independent of Mike McDaniel just as the head coach. But that being said, there's a reason why Mike McDaniel got a head coaching gig in the NFL. And he is a very eccentric individual, but a very creative mind and heavily influential in the running game. In fact, I'll go as far as to say that I truly believe he was probably the most vocal and the most instrumental about getting Debo involved the way that they did last year in that manner, introducing him to the running game and just getting him touches and creative touches and saying like, look what these special athletes can do with the ball in their hand in space, right? Not just running traditional dig routes and 10-yard hitch, 10-yard hook and curls and yada, yada, yada. Right. So it is a loss and it's significant, but every team experiences this year over year over year that you have these losses. But I do think it'd be foolish and irresponsible to draw a straight line and say the lack of offensive success and execution is directly related to Mike McDaniel leaving. But the reality is it's impactful for sure.
I agree. I think it's more of like a recipe type of thing. The Mike McDaniel leaving plus the regression off the offensive line. In addition to, once again, for some reason, Kyle Shanahan, running back, can't stay healthy. So injuries in the backfield all probably lead up to your offense probably not being as efficient as it was last year. Because last year, your offense, you could call it good. It was definitely efficient, though. It was definitely. So I think these things, you mix all these things in a pot, and this is what you're getting these first couple of games with Jimmy G. Hopefully things change because Kyle Shanahan, in my opinion, is a brilliant head coach. All right. I think if you get as far as you can with Jimmy G, as I think you're doing something right. But I do think it's a combination of things.
No, I totally agree, right? And I know a lot of people will point to like what I just said about Mike McDaniel being influential and creating those touches for Debo, and Debo still being utilized the same way this year. And Mike McDaniel's not there, so why is it not working? Well, the reality is the book is out on how they want to use Debo, right? So teams are planning for that and scheming against it. And the other reality that coincides is the mere fact that no defense is actually threatened by the passing game. And that is not
but
a
they
direct
weren't.
attribution to Kyle.
They weren't threatened by the passing game last year.
And that is not anything to do with Kyle Shanahan. That has everything to do with who is under center. Lou,
I also have a theory too. I have a theory too, real quick.
Yeah.
That Jason Kelsey called this out. I actually think the fact that George Kittle is such a good blocker that it's actually hurting their offense because he needs to be running more routes and like getting out there more.
Well, that ain't happening anytime soon with Trent Williams gone. You're going to see a lot of him assisting over there.
You can't have that though. You
can't have that.
You can't have, by the way, the best tight end in the league.
100%.
Like I said, because once again, I've also been called a Niner hater, but you can't have
this week
the best tight end in the league helping with pass protection. You can't. He has to be out there running more routes. He has to because once again, what Jimmy succeeds in is throwing over in the middle.
Yep.
Kittle, that's his bread and butter. That's where he makes his living, man. And the fact that if you're going to use him to run block or for chipping and stuff like that, I mean, you're actually doing your offense even a bigger disservice. I know he's great at it, but just because he's great at it doesn't mean you should be doing it a lot.
I have no qualms with them using him as much as they do in the run game to block and versus like splitting out your tight end to draw a defender away from the box because he is very good at it. I could argue that you could just as easily strap 75 on his back and let him go play left tackle like this week if you needed him to, and it'll probably be a better result than whatever we're going to plug in Colton McKivitz, Jalen Moore, whoever it might be at left tackle coming up against the Rams. Exactly. Although in the most crucial game of last year, week 18 against the Rams, Trent Williams didn't play. Colton McKivitz played left tackle, and he was actually pretty sturdy. That being said, in the run game, I think you use him because the more you utilize him in the pass game, the more that it's effective. The run blocking is effective for him, right? But not just lining him up like in a wing spot, like sending him in motion, pulling him, doing those things, catching people off guard. Like if you have him split out right and all of a sudden he's going in motion, it's like, all right, they're going to try to get the ball to him quick. And before you know, a quick pop, right? Like, and he just gets to the second tier, et cetera. So I have no qualms with them doing that. But here's why. So I do think Kyle's trying to stretch the field a little bit. And I think that's why George will stay into pass pro a little bit longer because they need to hold up to give a little bit more time. But here's the biggest thing and why I know Kyle is not the problem. Just go put on the tape. Just literally go watch the tape and watch wide receivers run wide open all over the field. All over the field. Dude, I won't tell you how many times Jimmy missed open receivers down the field without not even throwing to them. On the strong side of the formation, which I know is your first read, but yet you're staring at what matchup do you love on the left-hand side where you're staring it down? The one that he did connect with on Debo, dude, he puts a good ball out there, a decent ball, and Debo's like literally still running. 4 days later, nobody's catching him, but he's got to turn around, backpedal, catch the ball falling backwards because it's a lame duck going out there. I don't question the play call. I don't. I mean, every once in a while in certain situations, maybe like, was that it? But like the reality is the overall game plan, it's there. It's just coming down to execution. So here's what I do know. Jimmy G is a really pretty man. He's a tough guy, but he's an 8-year vet who's still late with his throws, still throws behind his receivers. He's going to.
He is what he is.
That's what I'm saying. But here's the worst thing about what he is, and it was really evident in this game. What do good quarterbacks do when pressure comes? More often than not, they step up in the pocket when there's the ability to step up. This man still tries to get outside even when the pressure's coming from outside, it's like, bro, you ain't a 4-4-40 guy. Like, there's nothing about your track record that says you're gonna break the contain on that outside pressure. He just doesn't step up. So people will be like, hey, listen, the interior offense line held up pretty decently again against Denver's defensive line. Decently, not phenomenal, but like still better than what I expected. But they're like, he's got no time. He's got no time. He's literally stepping into the pressure. He's not stepping up to avoid it. Therefore, he's not creating enough time to throw the ball, and these plays aren't coming to fruition. So it's the same song and dance. I never want to put a game on a single person's shoulder, but it's just bad. It's evident. I know, like, hey, here come the Rams. Like, I have no expectations of beating the Ram this week, even though we have traditionally had their number over the last 3 to 4 seasons. I just don't think this is that year, right? Like, I think you see more.
The Rams don't look too.
They
look like world beaters either, bro.
But we definitely don't. The reality is, though, is what's crazy is like this team should and could just as easily be 3, but yet we sit here at 1-2. Now, the worst part about this loss, another one to Russell Wilson. That's the worst part.
Oh my God.
And what makes it sting even more is he is exactly who I've been telling you he is, where for 3 quarters, he is pedestrian. Lou, if you go look up, I guarantee, I don't even know this to be a fact. My eyes and my gut just tells me, if you went and look up Russell Wilson's statistics through the first 3 quarters of games in his NFL career, I bet you he is well below average in terms of QB perception.
Where's our
but
stat
you
boy?
let him in.
I feel like our stat boy hasn't been around in quite some time.
I know. I had to cut his pay, dude. You know, things are getting a little tight. Saving up for that big dinner I'm going to buy you. But the reality is like, but you let a guy like that who is just a winner, right? Like, for what he's for as corny as he is, he's a gamer, he's a winner. You know it's going to bite you in the ass. And they gave up the 1 touchdown possession in the second half. And I can't even fault the defense, dude. They're playing in mile-high altitude, and they were on the field the entire second half. You're like, if you're a big fan of special teams, this was the game for you, baby. 17 punts in the game. And guess what? Did you see Eli or Peyton? Was it Eli or Peyton? Whichever one tweeted out
Eli that
about like paying the punter $250 million. Yeah. He earned it, bro. He pinned them back mad times. Mitch Wisnowski pinned them back mad times. Nonetheless, I digress. I'll pull the Belichick. It's on to the Rams for Monday Night Football.
It's on to freaking out. It's on to freaking out.
On to freaking out, as if we haven't done it enough. You go. Who are you freaking out about?
Okay, so, No, I'm going to start with the bad, just because I don't want you to use this bad. If I'm a Justin Fields truther, I'm freaking out because I'm telling you, he's not it. He's completed 23 passes
in 3
games. His completion percentage is 51.1%. He has 297 total passing yards, which ranks him last in the NFL. And his TD to interception ratio is 1-2, meaning he has 2 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. When you watch him play, he looks so ridiculously hesitant. And I'm sorry, there's no way that this guy is the future of that franchise at the quarterback position. And you want to know what? I think the new Chicago Bears GM knew that coming into this year. And that's why he loaded up everything on the defense. And he might try to go get his guy next year. You know, maybe like someone else.
Well, if they're smart, they'd start losing some games instead of sitting at 2-1 right now.
Don't worry, don't worry, man. They're going to start coming.
Yeah, no, they will.
Justin Fields, I didn't like him during the draft process. And I don't like him. There's nothing that that has changed my mind on him. I've always been down on him.
Yeah. I can't even disagree with that. I'm staying negative train the whole way here, baby. If I'm a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, I'm actually freaking out a little bit. So hear me out. I know the record says they're 2-1, but something, and this is just what my eyes tell me, it's not what the record tells me, something just looks broken there.
Yeah, they're riddled with injuries. No Godwin, there's no Evans this past week. I mean,
Like,
those are big losses.
I mean, well, you get Evans back, right? I get it, but like the offense to me just is not clicking. Like they
I
haven't
agree.
been able to really get the running game going. Speaking as a fantasy football GM who owns Leonard Fournette in a multitude of leagues,
Let
hasn't
me ask
really
you.
been.
Let me ask you a question, Weston. If your wife nags you, does that make you do better at work? Because
Well,
that's
this is
essentially that's exactly what's going on with Giselle and Tom Brady.
well in the real world it does because
Are you a better worker? I'm talking about at work. After your wife gets on you about something.
well, I guess my line of work is just like lets me go take it out on other people. So maybe it does like help my performance a little bit. But the reality is and you're getting right to the exact point. Like Tom
Distractions.
he just looks different. Like it's like I mean, I know he physically looks different, but on the field it looks different. Like even like we've seen Tom lose his temper before, but like the broken tablets on the side, like it's just feels broken. And even the defense doesn't feel exactly the same, right? Like, and it's the same pieces, you know. It just something is amiss. And in come the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday Night Football this week.
Can I tell you what looks? It's coaching. It's coaching.
You think Todd Bowles is that significant of
I
a
think he's an
difference
awful
between
coach.
Bruce
Yeah,
Arians?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's fair, but I don't think you can disagree with me that something something just feels amiss
And you know what?
in
This
Tampa
will
right now.
be a valid point once they get Evans back, once they get Godwin back. If they're still performing like this with pretty much the same pieces in place in a weak NFC, then yeah, all fingers point to the coach.
And a weak NFC South, nonetheless, right?
Yeah.
Like not even just a weak NFC.
So
Yeah. So that's me. I'm a little weary if I'm a Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan.
okay, I want to let's break through this rain, these clouds. Let's go some positive feelings. And I was between one or two teams, but it pains me to do this because I just talked about them ad nauseum in my prior discussion. But the Jacksonville Jaguars, man, they kind of look like a different team. They look competent. They look fast, young, hungry. They're 2-1 record. They're first place in the AFC South, which is a very winnable division, by the way. Who else is blowing your socks off when you watch them? And they are this close, by the way. They are a Washington Commanders football team, or whatever you want to call them, come back away from being 3-0.
Yeah.
So if you're in Duval, well, right now it's a little tough probably, but if you're in Duval, you're probably you're starting to realize that Lawrence, is probably that guy now that he has a competent head coach. Offensive line looks better. The bookends look better. The interior looks better. The defense, they've built so much resources into it, especially among the front four. It's starting to pay. It's starting to accumulate and show results.
Yeah. You know me, Lou. I'm always the first to take my L's, and I'll take them in stride. Trayvon Walker. Leading into the draft, I said there was a high probability that he had bust written on him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think anybody who ends up being the number one overall pick is going to have that probability because more oftentimes than not, they don't work out. I watched this game, and I'll tell you what, man, the kid is a special talent. He actually is a really. So I'm going to give props to your boy, your boy Craig Smith. When he was on,
I thought you were gonna give props to Trent Baalke.
No, I will never give props to Trent Baalke. But Craig schooled me during our roundtable when we had him and Aponte on. It was telling me how there's something different about this kid, Trayvon. Like, yeah, when you're picked that high, like expectations. I'll just say this: through 3 games, he has drastically exceeded my expectations.
He
and
did
I think
in the preseason too, by the way.
Yeah, who watches preseason football?
Just
Who puts
saying
any?
though, like it's not
Yeah,
it's a little,
Glenn Coffey was once upon a time the preseason's league leading rusher, and then he retired the NFL because he wanted to be a minister, and then a year later was arrested on drug and gun possession. So, like, what do you like? Again, who pays attention to the preseason? But again, I'll take my L through 3 weeks of the season. That he's nowhere near scratching the bust conversation. He is clearly a highly skilled individual, and I do agree with you. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are playing motivated. They're playing fast, competitive football.
yeah.
They still overpaid for their offensive weapons in the offseason because that's what bad teams do.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how that pans out. But they're playing well. I do have, you know what? I was gonna roll Todd. I was gonna roll with a negative one, but I'm gonna go with a positive one. I did put 2 positive ones down here in case my mood changed, and it's changing a little bit.
Okay, that's what wine does, bro.
And you know what I mean. If I'm a Cleveland Browns fan,
that was the other one I was gonna say.
I'm feeling pretty hyped. Through 3 games, we are 2-1. We are statistically sitting atop of the division, all while their all-world quarterback that they paid a gajillion dollars is suspended. And if they keep up this pace, this division, not even like, I mean, if they maintain a 500 status by the time Deshaun gets back, based on the way the other teams are playing, this division's winnable, dude. The Bengals are slipping, and they're slipping big time, right? Like their performance here was against the lowly New York Jets.
Who beat the Browns, by the way.
Who beat the Browns. But the Steelers are what we expect the Steelers to be this season, right? And I still don't think the Ravens have like really hit their stride, right? I think they're still figuring things out. I still like we're seeing like the same thing we saw through the first 8 weeks last season where it's the Lamar show. They go as far as Lamar goes, even though I expected them to be a better all-around team. So quite candidly, through 3 weeks of the season, things look rather optimistic for the Dog Pound.
Yeah, I agree with you. They're definitely on my list here if I'm freaking out in a good way. Once again, they are a freakish loss at home to the Jets from being 3-0. I love what-if scenarios. So how apropos would it be Deshaun Watson gets back to a winning Browns team, first place in the division, right? He comes in under center and totally shits the bed and they start losing. How apropos would that be?
Hey, listen. Yes, quite apropos and still quite feasible, right? Like
hasn't played in a while.
Hasn't played in a while. He's going to come back to a lot of media turmoil and a lot of scrutiny.
Yeah.
Like he will be highly scrutinized for his performance on the field because of his performance off of the field, essentially. All right. Do you have that was 2 and 2, right?
I'm good.
All right. Let's get into the offensive and defensive side of the football. We can start with the offense. Lou, who was your number 1 offensive player of the week in week 3?
Gonna say Khalil Herbert. Shout out to Khalil Herbert, running back for the Chicago Bears. Filled in mightily well for David Montgomery, who went down with a knee and ankle injury. Khalil Herbert had 22 touches and 169 total yards and 2 touchdowns in relief for David Montgomery and the Bears' second win. If it wasn't for him, Bears probably don't win.
Be a second win.
Yeah, exactly. But so Khalil Herbert for me.
Yeah, he was big time. I felt that pain because, again, somebody who carries Montgomery in multiple fantasy leagues, that hurt. For me, number 1 is the same as it was last week. It's Lamar again. 18 of 29 for 218, 4 touchdowns through the air, 11 carries for 107 yards and another TD. So do the math, 325 total yards and 5 touchdowns on the week. He's just we said earlier, Jimmy is what he is, and we're saying this about Lamar. Lamar is what he is, and good for him. He's doing it during a contract year, baby, because homeboy he performs at half this level for the rest of the year. He's gonna get paid. Yeah. He's gonna get paid a lot of guaranteed money in San Francisco.
And that brings us to my next point. Don't do crack.
Don't do crack.
All right. I do have another. It's interesting.
Yeah.
You went Lamar Jackson. I was toying between him and this other gentleman. Going Josh Allen. I know they did lose down there in South Beach. But if you look what he did for his team, it was 42 of 63 for 400 passing yards. And he had 2 touchdowns. But he also led the Bills in rushing yards with 47. So through the air, on the ground, just another ho-hum day against a pretty talented and aggressive Miami Dolphins defense. Just wasn't enough. And I think injuries are starting to creep up on the Buffalo Bills defense.
Yeah, you know what's funny though about that game, because I almost had Miami. I did have them in my notes, but for a second consecutive week of like positively freaking out related to them, because I've said this many of times on this show, and I'm certainly not the only person to ever say this, but good teams find ways to win, and that wasn't a game that Miami deserved to win, right? Like if you look at the statistics, Buffalo dominated that game. A few blunders. I do think injuries, specifically to the safeties, are gonna creep up on them, and we'll see. The real test is coming. Another real test is coming this week for them.
Oh yeah.
But this is what Lamar and Josh Allen do, bro. They lead their team in rushing. Clearly they lead their team in passing, but they do it efficiently and effectively week in and week out, and that's why they're 2 of the best superstars that the NFL has to offer. I'm going to go one more, and I don't have him in this slot on my list. I have 6 players listed.
On the offense, I had trouble finding.
Last week too.
Was easy. Last week was easy to find offensive.
I reached.
Yeah.
Because it on both sides of the ball, it was kind of like nobody had like that standout performance, maybe like outside of a couple people. But I'll guarantee you, it'll be the only time that I say this individual's name in the 2022 season, and probably moving forward. But Mac Hollins, the wide receiver from the Las Vegas Raiders, 8 catches for 158 yards and a touchdown. Mac, if you listen to the show, you are getting love from the We're Talking Football podcast, and we might be the only ones. But, like, dude, on a team that has Darren Waller, on a team that has Devontae Adams, on a team that has Hunter Renfrow, like, you were the guy. And you were the guy in a big way that kept, for the most part, the Raiders in that ball game. So shout out to you, sir.
The 0-3 Raiders. Anytime I can talk shit about the
Raiders,
I will find a way.
No doubt. All right, let's go to the defensive side.
Do you want to go first? I went first offensive. I'll defer to you.
Yeah. I'll lead. I have a couple. I think we would probably be looking at the same 2 people up top for all the same reasons. So I'll take the latter, only because I saw this person play live on Monday night. So I was at the Giant Cowboy game. So I'm going to go with Demarcus Lawrence. He had 6 tackles, 3 tackles for a loss, 3 QB hits, and 3 sacks. And that's usually our threshold, that 2.5 plus to 3 sacks when we talk about the defensive line. I will give kudos to the defense coordinator in Dallas. Parsons did play in this game. Yeah, sure. I don't even like to call him by his name. So yeah, Dan Quinn. The reality is like they did the obvious, and they just lined Demarcus Lawrence up over the rook, Evan Neal, and he just abused him all game, dude. He abused him in the worst way during this game, and it was rough.
What did I tell you about this Dallas defense in the beginning of the year?
They're stingy, man. You said it.
I said, their defense is going to be way better than their offense.
Oh, and it's evident. Although, I'm going to say this out loud. Giant Cowboy game. Anybody from the East Coast knows if you go watch a Giant Cowboy game, the stadium is a 50-50 split. There are that many Cowboy fans in this general area. They're America's team, right? It's a 50-50 split. So I'm on the escalator going down from our top of the stadium seats, my family season tickets, and we're going down. And I'm hearing all these Cowboy fans just talk to one another, and they're all liquored up, and they're all fucking pumped up on a Monday night win. And they're all like, fuck Dak. Fuck Dak. Cooper Rush. And I'm sitting there and I'm just listening. And again, most NFL fans are not educated NFL fans. Like, they root for a team, right? Like, and they find a team, and you like to go to games and whatnot.
Cooper Rush does throw a nice ball.
I was starting to sit there, and I was like, these guys might be onto something. Like, you can't for the mere principle of what you pay Dak and what his ability is. But I tell you one thing that I know about when you have backup quarterbacks in. They run the offense the way it was designed to be run, right? Like, and it's usually low risk, low reward.
No
right?
hero ball.
Don't go lose the game. That's not what we pay you to do. But I'm also not going to pay you to go win the game. Let's play to our strengths, and let's not put our defense in a bad spot. And the strength is the defense, and Cooper Rush does not put their defense in bad spots. It's not a coincidence he's 2-0. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's a nice luxury to have.
All right, who's your guy?
All right, so I actually have rookie standout and former Baylor Bear, Jalen Petrie. He had 8 tackles.
Hell of a game.
Yeah, 8 tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for a loss, 2 pass defense, and 2 interceptions. Now, he was fantastic coming out of college. I was a big fan of him, and he's proving. He's thrown his hat in the ring for defensive player of the year. He's been playing really well these first 3 weeks.
D-Roy, dude, I pounded the table for wanting this man in the draft this year. He's a heck of a player. And what's the best affirmation you can give to any NFL fan, especially does like what we do in our spare time, is like, tell me I'm right. Right? He just keeps telling me that I'm right about some things. Number 2 for me, and I'm leaving some people here, but I'm going to go with Roquan Smith, actually.
Perfect. I'm glad you did
16 this. Tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, a pass defense, and a pick. I would argue that 16 tackles is probably enough, right? Like, that's just nose on the ball, and I know it's that kind of game. But the cherry on top was this man going and getting himself an interception during the game as well. So Roquan Smith for me.
Okay, I have one last one.
And I'll throw one last one too.
I think this one is going to surprise you, actually, because if you look at this individual's stat sheet, nothing pops out. Nothing. Not tackles, not sacks, interceptions, or anything like that. You have to watch the tape on this one. Jeffrey Okudah, cornerback from our favorite Detroit Lions.
Bro, you're a fan too. I love it.
This shit is this Lions fandom is spreading more rampant than COVID. So Jeffrey Okudah, the highly touted cornerback out of Ohio State, has had a rough get-go to start off his career. But he's finally healthy. He's worked his way back. Dan Campbell, sang his praises, and basically he could have felt entitled to, be a starting quarterback, but he really put the work in this offseason, and he held the Justin Jefferson to 14 yards, and he was manned up on him. And if you look at the tape, it was his recovery speed that shows significant. He just played with great leverage. This has nothing to do with stats, but it does have to do with stats if you look at the opposing team stats and their best receiver in Justin Jefferson. Anytime you're shutting Justin Jefferson, I know you can throw the Kirk Cousins, memes out there or whatever you want to do, but Justin Jefferson, he's going to eat on a Sunday. All right, well, he's going to eat well,
but he hasn't
played
in 2 weeks.
Yeah, but he's played fantastic. But Jeffrey Okudah, great job at shutting him down.
Wow, I did not see that one coming.
I knew you wouldn't.
I'm going to throw one out there, and I'm going to shout out the entire Philadelphia Eagle defense.
Oh.
The whole defense.
You want to talk about revenge game?
Oh, my God, dude. Bro, they sacked Carson Wentz 9 times in a game. 9 times. I think their leader was Brandon Brooks. I think he had like 2.5 Brandon Graham, 2.5. 17 QB hits. You know what that tells me? I'm not even throwing pressures out there, right? There's probably 30 plus in this game. Like, they got after the quarterback. And you know what? That tells me everything I need to know about the defensive backfield as well, because there was probably some shutdown going on in that coverage that let them get those extra few hits, those extra few pressures, and maybe an extra sack or two. So Philadelphia Eagle defense, wow.
I think you're shortchanging one major contributor to all those stats.
The
Carson
Washington
Wentz.
offensive line.
Carson Wentz has the pocket awareness of Ray Charles. Like he doesn't know anyone.
Of Jimmy Garoppolo.
He doesn't know. He's just awful.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I can't believe none of us said. I mean, I have him on my list, but Dietrich Wise.
Dietrich Wise, 3 sacks.
Yeah.
All right, Dietrich Wise, 3 sacks. You gotta
Yeah.
get anyone has 3 sacks. You got a special place in my heart.
You get love on We're Talking Football podcast. So real quick, because it just came to mind, and I'm going to call this out, and we'll get into our next segment. We last week rushed a little bit at the end.
Ah, shit.
To get out of here.
Remind everyone? I'm glad you didn't bring this up in the beginning, but go ahead.
I'm going to clue now that we're in a better mood, I figure this is probably opportune time.
Yeah, I'm like 3 drinks deep.
No, but I also just thought about this because I sent you a text message while we were talking, and that's how you communicated this to me last week as well. Was Lou's like, hey, my battery and my computer is dying and I can't get it to work. So I'm like, all right, well, we'll start speeding through some things. So we rushed up some things because I didn't want them to fall off in the middle of it. And when we hang up and I
was just lying to you. I just had to take a shit.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of do, but we'll see. But as we wrapped up, we always shoot the shit for a little bit while longer. And he's like, oh, my computer's dying. I'm plugging it in. Nothing's working. I can't get it. So the reality is the charger for his MacBook was in the wall. The cord was plugged into the computer, but the cord was not plugged all the way into the charger in the wall. So we figured this out on the fly, user error. We didn't have to rush through everything, but I promised Lou that I would call it out. Rookie mistake, technological difficulties.
Guys, I chargered. All right, I chargered. I'm sorry.
You had 10 days to prepare and you weren't prepared, dude. All right. Speaking of preparation, what are you preparing and looking forward to this weekend in week 4 of the NFL season?
I'm sorry, I'm going to do low-hanging fruit here, but it has to be Bills-Ravens. I think it's probably the battle of the most exciting dual-threat quarterbacks out there. It's going to be fantastic. You have the Bills coming off, a tough loss, but they're back on the road again against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. And I just think this game is going to be fantastic. I think it's going to be high scoring because I don't think the injuries on the Bills side. They're throwing out Xavier Rhodes out now, out there in the secondary, and they've lost 2 safeties. For some reason, the Ravens secondary is still not well. I mean, I think you let Devontae Parker catch 8 catches for 156 yards. I mean, you can't really say you're a stingy, secondary. So it should be interesting from both a passing and rushing standpoint from both quarterbacks. So I'm just looking at these 2 guys, Lamar versus Josh Allen. Get your popcorn.
Yeah. That is, yeah, I mean, clearly that's on my list too. Believe it or not, I am very much looking forward to tomorrow evening's game. The Miami Dolphins versus Cincinnati Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
Part of this is because I just happen to think that Amazon puts out a very good product, and I'm happy with their Thursday night production to this point. And I hope they acquire the Sunday ticket versus what I've been exposed to for DirecTV over the last, I don't even know, 20 years of my life. Apple's in the mix. I don't think it's been decided yet, to be honest with you. I think it's just like who's in the mix. If they're not in the mix, they need to get in the mix right now. You want more Amazon subscribers. This is how you do it. I'll tell you that much. But for me, like on the field, since he got off the schneid last week, right? They've been still a putrid performance, if you ask me, overall, by the team. But does that breed a little bit confidence, and do they get back to their winning ways? And then what I really want to see is Miami coming off of that. Let's just call it a really emotional win in the Buffalo game on a short week. And can they beat the defending AFC champions? I believe this game is in Cincinnati. I have to double check that. We'll talk about it when we get to the next segment here. I'll get confirmation on that. But if Miami starts 4-0, That's a lot of confidence building on this team with a new coach who's got the swag that Mike McDaniel does. Like, you want to talk about dipping into your creativity? Nothing will make this man dip further into. I saw Tyreek Hill talk about him, how Tyreek Hill's like, dude, he coaches like he's like playing Madden, right? Like he just like draws up plays and does these random things. And you asked me before, is it a big hit to the 49ers? And I said it is. Just not a direct correlation as to why things aren't going right there right now. But I think this is a bigger test for Miami than most people think, just based on Cincinnati's record.
Okay. I got one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know me. I'm a sucker for revenge games. The Jacksonville Jaguars at the Philadelphia Eagles. Looking forward to Peterson coming home. It'll be nothing. I mean, I don't care who wins this game, but I would love to see Peterson come home with Lawrence and spoil their parade a little bit. That would be fun. But I think it's a big game for both. Once again, Eagles are looking like a serious contender. I did pick them before we started the season to win the NFC East. I'm not backing off on that. They have done nothing to disprove my confidence in them. This will be a good litmus test for the Jacksonville Jaguars because they've been competitive. They've been good the first 3 weeks. But let's see how they, when you step up against another big boy team.
I argue this is a litmus test for the Eagles. I know their record says 3-0, and I know they seem to be passing the test with flying colors, but week 1, they narrowly escaped our Detroit Lions. Even though they built that lead, but almost let them come back. Week 2, they played a Kirk Cousin-led team on a Monday Night Football game, and we all know how that goes. I mean, you can just mark that in the dub column, even though I picked against them. I don't even know why I did that. And then they played the Washington Commanders last week. So I think, and the way I think Jackson is a more formidable opponent than anybody else that they've played thus far based on the circumstances of their playing. So I think it's a litmus test for the Eagles as well.
Touche.
Since you threw out one, I'll throw out one more, and I won't take the obvious of watching my 49ers and Rams on Monday night. Division rivals. I'm going to say Kansas City Chiefs versus Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
See, I wanted to say that, but really? Because I'll tell you right now, Tampa Bay, you've already, aforementioned that like they look skittish and like they don't look like the Bucs from the last 2 years. So they're not as enjoyable to watch. And I'm also going to make an argument. Same thing with the Chiefs. Their defense looks good. Okay. But the reason why you tune in is always Mahomes. And I know Mahomes is getting it done, but he looks a little more human than superhuman. I'm not saying he's playing bad. Mahomes, in my opinion, is probably the best quarterback out there. But before, you'd be petrified of him. Now he looks, you see a little blood in the water.
Yeah. Well, I'd argue that both of these teams have something to prove. Everything that I mentioned earlier, and you just recapped around my concerns for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You did, they get Evans back. I would say a contribution to their loss to Green Bay and this team not being 3-0 is playing mistake-filled football. They turned the ball over quite a bit on the offensive side. Dumb penalties put them in bad spots. So I feel like they got something to prove. And I promise you, never in a million years did Kansas City think they were going to walk into Indianapolis and have a dogfight on their hand last week.
Without Shaquille Leonard or Darius Leonard, where you want to call, against a Gus Bradley defense, which Mahomes always eats up.
Yep.
Like I was utterly shocked that happened too.
So here's a loss from Tampa Bay proves my theory right and could potentially send this team spiraling, in my opinion.
They're still in the NFC though, man.
Yeah, but a win will bolster that confidence and be like, hey, like we were in the playoffs last year. We won the Super Bowl the year before. Like we're still that team. We still got that swag. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's recap what happened last week.
Did you check my text message? Check my text message, by the way.
I responded back.
Okay. All right. So let's go into the pick'ems. Okay. Perfect. Let's go into the pick'ems. Last week in week 3, Lou, you were 9-7. I was 9-7, and we weren't 9-7 because we picked the same teams.
No, we picked like 3 games.
Yep.
I think different.
And it's just how it wound up, right? So we were.
Do you have an overall? What we are?
I do have an overall. Overall for the season, I am 25-23.
Ooh.
You are 26-22. So you got me by 1 game right now. Bastard. All right. So allow me to break out the schedule.
I always want to tell you when we do this, there's no shame in finishing second, my friend.
When there's only 2 of us.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. All right, Lou.
We're starting tomorrow.
Miami at Cincinnati.
I'm gonna give you a quick answer. Bengals. Miami's banged up. You got Tua banged up. I just feel like once again they played a crazy game against the Bills. It's just my philosophy. When you play an emotional, crazy game against division rival, there's always going to be a letdown the following week, especially on a short week, especially traveling to Cincinnati. In addition, Miami's defense good, albeit they do blitz a lot. If they don't get home, it could be a problem. I know the Bengals have an issue protecting, but I think there's going to be some big risks, big rewards for the Bengals, and I think they hit on them. So I'm saying Bengals.
All right. I'm gonna get dirty real fast. I'm gonna go Dolphins.
Okay.
I hear everything you're saying with the banged up to things of that nature. We both predicted this slip from Cincinnati earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Miami's defense is still their strength, believe it or not. And I think that offensive line is just giving fits for Joe Burrow right now and not keeping him upright. So I'm going to say the Fish in what is always usually a close game on Thursday night football. Doesn't mean it's going to be a great game, but I'm going to go with the Fish on this one.
Okay.
All right. Minnesota at New Orleans.
Isn't that in New Orleans? Isn't that in
It's
England?
in New Orleans. No, it's in New Orleans.
Really?
No, excuse me. It is. So it's at New Orleans, but it's at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London.
Okay. Minnesota won last week. I'm going to say give me New Orleans.
Okay.
No rationale. Banged up Dalvin Cook. That's not that's rough. Am I backtracking? I think. You know what? Screw it.
Before you backtrack, I'm saying the Vikings.
Yeah, so I'm back because I just realized New Orleans has some injuries on themselves too. So I'm going to go Vikings. Yeah.
Okay.
Forgot about some of the injuries that New Orleans has. No Michael Thomas, no Landry. That could be a big problem.
Yeah, I have no rationale either, other than like Kirk Cousins just feels like a guy who can't play on Monday night, but could probably play in the UK on a Sunday morning at 9:30 hour time.
You know what? Yeah, that's 100% right. It's literally the opposite of prime time game.
I don't even know how you watch this. Oh, on the NFL Network, apparently, according to what I'm looking at.
So yeah, I'm going Vikings.
All right, I'm going Vikings too, and I also think in all seriousness, like based on the last two, like they will be going out of their way to get Justin Jefferson the ball this week.
Yeah,
out of their way, have to. All right, the Cleveland Browns at the Atlanta Falcons.
Dog pound.
Yeah, I'm Browns here as well. Speaking of Browns, I checked in on our boy Scott because he's down in Florida, so I wanted to make sure he was all right because I know he's in the storm's path. The Commanders at the Cowboys.
I mean,
I got Cowboys.
Yeah, Cooper. How can you bet? How can you ever
bet against Cooper Rush?
How?
It's one of the greatest football names.
Exactly. This guy sounds like he should be. He was like in Varsity Blues or or what's that show with Blue
Mountain, whatever.
I was gonna say it was a Friday Night Lights.
Friday Night Lights, yeah.
Dude, this guy could Cooper Rush and plays in Dallas. I mean, you can't bet against that.
Yeah. It's almost as good as like Colt McCoy should be the Dallas Cowboys quarterback. Seahawks at our Detroit Lions. I'm taking the Lions, baby.
Okay, I'm actually going to say the Seahawks. The Lions are ridiculous. If you saw the injury report from today, they're banged up, and some of them might play. All right, but how effective will they be? Amon St. Brown hurt. DJ Chark didn't play. Their left guard Gabe Jackson didn't play. Swift won't play. Yeah, they are really banged up.
Detroit.
Okay, I got Seattle.
You got the Seahawks. I got the Lions. Titans at Colts.
I'm gonna go Colts here. I think they build up something after that win against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah,
and I also feel like Derrick Henry still is not himself yet. I feel like.
Hey, who told you that?
Listen. I will always give credit where credit's due, and you were the first one to say the chink in the armor. You know, he feels like he's no longer invincible.
Well, he got the workload last week, right? Which was pivotal. I don't even know that's not a word. Pivotal.
That is a word after you had a couple of drinks.
All right. The Bears at the G-Men.
You can take this one first. I'll play off of you.
Honestly, this one's tough for me because I just watched the G-Men play. And, dude, you know I'm a football fan, right? And I follow a lot of teams. And I'm standing in the stands with my brother, and they're announcing the defensive starters, like, as they're coming on the field. I'm like, look at them. I'm like, who are these people? Like, and here's the other thing that's a little concerning. Ojulari, right, who was their second-round pick last year. Mm-hmm. He first game back was this last week. And Kayvon Thibodeau, his first game of the year was this week, and both of them got abused by the Cap. Like, not just like a lot of self-inflicted abuse, just wrong positions, like didn't keep the edge, didn't keep anything. That being said, I'm taking the G-Men.
Yeah, the Bears probably will be out with David Montgomery.
Yeah.
So you have Khalil Herbert, who can shoulder the workload, but outside of him, I just don't see. I'm betting against Justin Fields. This is. Mm-hmm. I'm just betting against Justin Fields.
Yep. All right. Here's the game you mentioned earlier: the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Philadelphia Eagles.
Saying the Eagles, and let me tell you why. I think the Eagles' offensive line can neutralize that pass rush. They say like good defenses beat good offense. Yeah. Good offensive line can shut down a good pass rush, and I do think. This game is going to be exciting, though. It's going to be fun, but I do think the Eagles win this game.
I not that like in Jacksonville is like in Duval is a home field advantage in any capacity.
It's at Philly, though.
Yeah, no, I was basically saying, like sometimes in these like closer games, I'll lean towards the home team, but I don't think that would give them the advantage. I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying I think. What made Jacksonville look really good last week was being able to run the ball and keep pressure off of Trevor Lawrence. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're going to be able to run the same way against Philadelphia's defense. So I'm going Eagles. All right. Next up, the New York Jets at the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Zach Wilson is cleared to play.
I'm going to say to make Steeler fans more agitated, I think they win. So that will prolong Mitchell Trubisky, whatever you want to call him, his tenure as their starting quarterback. So I'm going to say the Steelers.
I'm honestly, I'm the Steelers too. I think I'm honestly maybe even have a little bit more confidence in the Jets if Flacco was going into this game. Somebody who has a ton of experience against Mike Tomlin and understands it. But like the adrenaline for Zach Wilson, missing the time, maybe if he bangs one of his mom's friends prior to the game, he'll feel a little bit better and feel
at least a hand job. At least get a hand
you know job. What I mean? Like a raw dog one too at least. Geez. But I'm going Steelers as well.
Wow, this show just went downhill real quick.
Thank God on YouTube I always click not for kids when that's an option when you post, by the way. You don't want us showing up next to like Bluey on YouTube or Blippy on YouTube, We're talking about totally different Blueys on this show. All right. All right. Speaking of Blueies, the Blue Buffalo Bills were at the Baltimore Ravens. This one's really tough for me, dude. This is really tough for me.
This is tough. I'm going to say the Bills. I feel like Josh Allen's that type of competitor that he got beaten last week. He's pissed. Not saying – I just feel like this game is going to be interesting to me. If the Bills go out there and do what they need to do, that shows me that they are for real. They can – not that they need to show me anything. So let me backtrack from that. But what that basically tells me is he's got that dog in him type stuff. And, like, he can bounce back from a tough loss. And I got to believe it in him. I think the Bills, the Bills dominated last week. Yeah. And that's why I got to say the Bills.
I don't even know what the over-under is in this game. I'm
sure it's high. I can't get out of mind that Mac Jones threw, he didn't throw for any touchdowns.
300 plus.
Yeah, I can't get that out of my mind. If Mac Jones throws for 300 yards against you.
With no Jacoby Myers, nonetheless, who's usually racks.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. I specifically call out that I wonder what the over-under is, because if history tells us anything, the games that we always think are going to be shootouts end up being defensive battles.
Yeah, we fell victim to that numerous times last year.
Right now, as it sits, I think the Buffalo Bills defense, even with the injuries, is better than Baltimore's defense right now. I'll do you one better. Forget Josh Allen as a competitor. How about 49er legend Ken Dorsey breaking tablets and going absolutely nuts? Like, if there's anybody fired up for this opportunity, it's Ken Dorsey, and that's enough for me. 49ers legend. I'm taking the Buffalo Bills as well. Another thing that I want to...
Do you know where Ken Dorsey's from?
University of Miami, bro.
The
U. Come on, dude. We drafted him in the 6th round. I used to tell people when we drafted him, I was like, to me, he was one of those guys that was like, don't care about the stats, don't care about his 40 time, don't care about anything. All that dude ever did was win football games down at the U. Like, he was a very successful collegiate quarterback, and people forget that, and a very smart guy. Hung around the NFL for a little bit of time and then just parlayed that right into coaching. So one other thing that I want to call out for this, the site that I'm on actually tells me tickets and costs while I'm looking at it. So just keep this in mind right now. For that game in Baltimore, tickets are as low as $127 right now. Just keep that in mind, because I'm going to bring something up in a moment again. So next game, your Chargers at the Houston Texans.
Once again, I'm going to preface this. I think this game will be closer than everyone might anticipate. What the Chargers do decently, I feel like they take care of their business in revenge games. They have some guys coming back from injury. Lindsley practiced today. Keenan Allen practiced today. Donald Parham, decent tight end, practiced today. So they're getting some reinforcements. It's going to be real close. I do think the Chargers, because they do decently when it comes to revenge games, win this game, even though it's going to be a 1 o'clock early game for them and they're on the road. But I'm picking them.
I think they still have a bitter taste in their mouth from the last year's game against the Texans, right?
That's what I'm alluding to when I talk about revenge game, because they kept on pointing, like, even before the season started, they talked like that was the game that basically kind of kicked them out of like being like made the following week, the Chiefs game, a must win to be the division leader, right? So if they won that game, it wouldn't put so much emphasis on that Chiefs game. So yeah, I definitely think they're no longer in a position to overlook this team because they realize what the team did to them last week. I can't think that Burkhead's going to run for what he did. You know what I'm saying? Or I think, especially last week, some humble pie, maybe that'll work in their benefit. So I'm going to say the Chargers begrudgingly.
I'm going to do you one better, bro. I don't know if I've used this yet this year, but this is a must-win for the Los Angeles Chargers. It's a must-win football game, and I'll tell you why, dude. 1-3 is not how you envision this season starting, right? When you looked at the schedule. Coinciding with some of those injuries that we talked about that are going to have some long-term effects for the remainder of the season and even for the next coming weeks. And the knowledgeable Charger fans that I know, yourself included in that, are already reeling a little bit off of last week's performance. God help us all if there's a repeat performance against a subpar team like the Houston Texans. Got to win this football game. And for that reason, I go with the Los Angeles Chargers.
Any games they can win in this early part of the season is a huge win because then they'll get, hopefully they'll get Bosa back towards the end of the season. That'll provide them a little extra juice. So any win, like I said, will be huge.
All right. Arizona Cardinals at the Carolina Panthers.
Ooh. It's like these are two teams you just don't know their identity. They're at Carolina. What time is that game? Tell me what time is that game.
It's actually 4:00, even though it's at Carolina.
Give me
That's
Arizona.
a big difference.
Give me Arizona.
Yeah.
This is why I ask those. This is why I ask those hard-hitting questions, Weston.
Dude, you're right. This is the first thing I looked at. The second thing
I picked Carolina last week, by the way.
Yeah. So Arizona.
I think with Carolina, I'm just going every other week that they're going to win or lose.
Who'd they have?
Saints.
Yep, you did, and I had the Saints. I had the Aints. I'm taking Arizona too. I think that 4:00 start time is a huge difference. Again, both of these teams, I really don't know their identity. What's so odd though is this is not the way that we're accustomed to seeing the Arizona Cardinals play, right? Like usually they start. I mean, dude, like last year, halfway through the season, we were calling Kyler Murray the MVP and Cliff Kingsbury Coach of the Year.
I was never doing that. I said Lamar.
I was. It's documented. It's documented. I have it.
You had to pump the brakes on that.
But I'm going Cards as well. The other thing, remember I asked you to hold on to something a couple moments ago?
Mm-hmm.
To show you how the difference in market and the difference in games that people care about. I said it was $127 tickets as low as for the Buffalo-Baltimore game. For this Arizona Carolina Panthers game, tickets as low as $17 to get into the stadium.
Wow,
$17, bro, to get into these stadiums. I'll tell you right now that I'm wondering what's going on with these Chicago, New York tickets because it's in New York and it's saying tickets as low as $63. Lou, my family season tickets that I have we are literally the tip top row of the stadium, and face value is $100 that I pay for those. And they're going for as low as 63. So that just shows you how the Bears come to town. Whatever. I'll just lose money. I don't have to waste an entire Sunday. That's the way that goes. All right. Next game up, New England Patriots at the Green Bay Packers.
Packers.
Yeah, give me the Pack.
I mean, Brian Hoyer led Patriots? I don't think so.
Yep. Broncos at Raiders.
I picked the Raiders last week.
I'll tell you right now, I'm picking them this week.
They have to. All right, so ready? This is my rationale for picking the Raiders. They're at home. They're desperate. They're 0-3. They're a wounded dog. And the Broncos have done nothing to show me. I think this is a big game for Devontae Adams. And for that reason, I'm picking the Raiders.
I'll disagree with you on one accord. Well, I will 100% agree that the Broncos have showed nothing. But they're going to win this game because I said earlier during the Offensive Player of the Week segment that I will never have to mention Mac Hollis's name ever again. Mac Hollis is going to go for $1.50 and 2 TDs in this game, and it's going to be the Raiders.
You must have him on a fantasy team or something.
God, no. If we were giving fantasy advice this week, which we're not, I think we should make a public commitment, Lou, that we will next week. Starting next week, we'll start doing that.
I'll gentleman handshake you there. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sunday night game. Kansas City Chiefs at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yeah. Yeah.
For those who can't see me, I'm doing the Chiefs chop.
Are we allowed to say tomahawk chop? That's what it used to be, right?
I don't know. I kind of feel racist just saying that. I apologize. I will come up with an apology later.
Public issue statement.
Well, yeah, exactly.
All right, final game of the week. I hate that I have to pick this as the final game. The Los Angeles Rams.
Wow, how many drinks you got in you there, buddy?
No, that's a Freudian slip, dude. We spend more time talking about the Chargers throughout the show.
Yeah.
Los Angeles the Los Angeles Rams at the San Francisco 49ers. I'm picking the Chargers to win this game, apparently.
Oh man. All right. I mean, I'm in your house. I'll let you choose first.
I mean, I said it earlier in the show when I was on the rant. There's nothing about the performance last week in Denver that gives me any confidence in this offense. Yes, I know the Rams don't look like the Rams last year, but the 49ers certainly don't look like the 49ers that closed out the 2021 NFL season. I know this game's on Monday night. I know it's in Santa Clara. I know we tend to play better at home. I just have to go with the Rams. I don't think this is. I think with the changes on the offensive line and Trent Williams being out, that's enough for me on what we're going to be able to do on offense.
You hit the nail on the head. I desperately want to say the Niners here. I desperately do. I can't, only because the offensive line was a little suspect prior to Trent Williams being hurt, and now that he's going to be out for this Monday night game, I think that's big.
You know me, dude, I don't really criticize players often because I say this all the time, right? Like, who are we to criticize the ability of an NFL player? This is the elite of the elite, even if you're sitting on a practice squad. These guys are dominant at their sport to even be at that level. But
so you think Storm Norton is dominant? Yeah. Look at you go walk doing the moonwalk like Michael Jackson.
No. It's all relative, though, right? Like, I'm not backing off it. Like, Storm Norton is good at football to be playing in the NFL. You know how many former collegiate tackles and high school superstar tackles that don't even sniff this league? But I'm saying this to say, Mike McGlinchey, get off your ass and improve in pass protection. Flat out. You need to be better as the number 9 overall pick in a draft. Be better. Period. End of story.
Picked before Derwin.
Yeah.
I thought. I know we're getting off topic here, but I thought clear as day that Derwin was going to have a Niner on his helmet. I thought it was like
written in stone, dude.
Yeah, I'm like all right. Well, I'm like, there goes my opportunity, and I was going to hope for Vita Vea at that time. But
the reality too, though, is like, I didn't even hate the McGlinchey pick when it happened. I mean, did I want Derwin? Yeah, but so much of our first round collateral in the years prior was predicated on the defense and specifically the defensive line. So I liked the change in the guard, and he also came in and was a nice complementary piece to a very sturdy offensive line at the time. Like, even when we were a floundering team, it wasn't the offensive line that was the issue. It was lack of quarterback and lack of skill position and lack of other things. So he didn't have to do much. Just be a decent right tackle in the NFL and you'd be an upgrade. But now there's expectations, dude. Now there's expectations. Like, I know you had a significant injury last year, but you're out there. Play. You know what I mean? Like, he's great against the run. He's just a liability against the pass. And if we want to beat the Rams, like, bro, they're stacking the box. They're taking the run game away. Like, you got to protect your quarterback. All right, dude. There it is. We'll come back and recap next week. A little dangling carrot. We have a gentleman's handshake that next week we'll return to giving you fantasy advice. Here's the reality. We're walking into the 4th week of the season. There's still not enough. And there's still not significant enough long-term injuries in fantasy football players that you need to make immediate changes to. But this is the time of the year.
I call bullshit. what Weston's lying to you all. What the real thing is, we're lazy. We haven't had time.
Come on, dude. That was my creative genius right there coming out.
Yeah, but I mean, I smelled that bullshit through the mic.
I know, me too. I gotta evacuate my room. I'm stinking it up so bad. All right, Lou. That completes the week 3 recap, like we always do. Tell everybody where they can find us.
You can find us at WTF Pod NFL on Instagram and Twitter. And Weston, tell them about YouTube.
I'm going to tell you one more time about YouTube for tonight's show. We're talking football. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Tell your friends. Help us out. But that's it. That's a wrap. We'll see you all next week.